Good morning, Eastern Hills. So glad that you are here with us. What a week it has been. PSL is out. Pumpkin spice lattes, that's right. I put the vest on this morning, even though it's gonna be 90 degrees. It just felt right, you know? So, hey, this morning we are continuing our Vision Weekend message from last week. This is part 2 of basically a 2-part message. So I'm gonna recap in just a few minutes a little bit of, if you weren't here last week, what we talked about last week. But as we get started this morning, I wanna talk to you about this a bit of a lifelong dream, fascination, I guess I would say, that I've had. I have always thought it would be so cool to be a farmer. Right? And some of you might think that is the most random thing ever, Kendal, but I promise it'll make sense in a little bit. But I've always been intrigued by farming. The first house I ever lived in as a child was a rental farmhouse where right outside my bedroom window until I was like 5 years old, a herd of black Angus cows used to wake me up every morning by mooing right outside my window. And at one point, my parents lived in Michigan, and we spent time there, and the regional crop where we lived in Michigan was seed corn. So corn as far as the eye could see. And then I remember one of the first times I was in Zambia and visiting the Villages of Hope, our orphan village that we support there, that we send a team to every summer. And while we were there, I remember seeing women out in the field, like working the fields by hand. And I was like, wow, that's just so cool. And I've never wanted to be, I was very specific. I wanted to be a farmer that had like huge fields, whether it was corn, wheat, whatever. Like I wanted to be like driving the tractor. No pig farming, no chicken farming. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. I was very specific, knew what I wanted to do. And I kind of really thought the coolest part of it would be like these huge fields, living off the land. You get to drive a tractor. You have to have a huge pickup truck. I'm not sure why, but you know, all farmers have a huge pickup truck. Like, it would just be awesome being outside. And every time I see someone farming or we go somewhere, I always say things like, oh man, I should have been a farmer. And Sonia just laughs at me every single time. And because here's the thing. She says, yeah, isn't that we would be so good. It's perfect, right? And my face on other people's bodies, I don't understand. Last week if you were here, yeah. But she says it's more than just riding around in a big pickup truck every day, Kendal. And I do realize, like when I was in Zambia, these pictures aren't of Zambia, but women and men working these massive fields by hand. And I remember seeing them harvesting in Zambia thinking it would take days, if not months, to harvest that entire field by hand. My brothers, I was a little older when we lived in Michigan, but my brothers, when they were young, they used to ride in a machine that looked like this. This is a corn detasseler. And the kids would stand in these cages, they'd drive it through the field, and they would pick the corn tassels off of 4 rows and leave the 5th row. It had to do with fertilizing the corn properly and making seed corn. But they would do that for months at a time in the summer, all day long, every day. And then I have friends in California that milk 5,000 cows twice a day on huge, huge dairy farms. It is a lot of work. And honestly, as I think about it, it would be completely overwhelming for me, a pastor who works in an office all day, who has very soft hands, like to go out and wouldn't know a thing about farming. I could never do it. But the reason I'm talking to you about my infatuation with farming this morning is because Jesus tells a story about farming, and I want us to look at it today. So this is in Matthew chapter 9. Matthew was one of Jesus' disciples, one of his followers. He was an eyewitness to this account, and so he's writing what Jesus was doing. It says this: Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. The way I picture these verses is that Jesus is going from from town to town, right? He's telling people that he can change their lives. Like there's something different about following him. He can make their lives better, that following him can bring them more joy and more peace, more purpose in their lives. And while he's doing that, at the same time, he sees people who are sick, sees people who are struggling financially, people who are grieving the loss of loved ones, people who don't have any friends or family, people without any direction. Excuse me. And it says he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. I don't know if you know much about sheep, but they don't live very long without a shepherd. And then Jesus, he says these words. He says, I want you to take a look. And we're gonna look at these things and we're gonna talk about these things. But he says, he turned to his disciples. These are his closest friends, his followers. They're with him all the time. He turns to them and he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few, right? There's only 12 of you guys and me, like there's not many of us. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And as we continue to talk today about our vision for E-Hills and what our hope for the future is here as a church in Southeast Aurora and throughout the Denver metro area, I want to quick remind you of some of what we talked about last week. We introduced our theme for the next year, from strength to strength. It comes from Psalm 84, where we read these words, blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. This is talking about us, right? The people who dwell in God's house, ever praising you. Goes on, blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. That's us too, right? We want to go out. We want to make disciples throughout Aurora, throughout Colorado, throughout the world. As they pass through the valley of Baca, we learned last week that word means mourning. That it's not always going to be easy. It's going to be difficult at times, but they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. Strength to strength. E-Hills has been around over 40 years doing great ministry here in Aurora. That is strength. But the question is, what will the next 40 years look like? Hopefully even greater things that will be even stronger in the next 40 years and beyond that we will continue from strength to strength. We talked about the way that we want to be salt and we want to be light in our world. Two things that Jesus uses to describe how his message, how his following him will make a difference. His good news, it spreads throughout the world. Salt mixes into our food and enhances the flavor. Light enters into the darkness and allows people to see the beauty of the world around them. And we said that as a church, we want to be salt and we want to be light in our world. But if we want to do that, there's a couple of things that we need to do to make that happen. The first one is unity. We need unity around our vision, that everyone's working together towards the same goal, inviting everyone to experience that Jesus makes life better. See, as a church, it's so easy to get inwardly focused, let our own preferences get in the way. So at Eastern Hills here, we say that we're about people more than preferences, that we're gonna put our own preferences aside so that we can pursue unity. The second one is love, that we have to show love to the people around us. All the people around us. The people that like us, the people that are like us, the people that don't like us. All the people around us, we have to show God's love to everyone. And then number 3, sacrifice. Doing this, being salt and light in the world, is always going to cost something. It costs to invest in someone's life. It costs to have unity. It costs to have love, to forgive, to serve. It all costs. And I know some of you walked out of here last week because some of you talked to me in the lobby afterward, very excited, very challenged about the future of what E-Hills can look like if we pursue unity, love, and sacrifice. But if you're anything like me, you hear those things and they feel kind of abstract, right? Like what do I do with that? I need to know what that looks like for me personally. What does it look like for me to pursue unity and love and sacrifice? And honestly, It takes all of us being open to God working through us. Last week, Tom, he turned on this light bulb here. And he said, this light bulb is really nothing on its own. It's just a light bulb. But when it is plugged into electricity, when it's plugged into the source, the way that we plug into the source that God is for us, well then, look at what it does. It can light up the world around us. And then he turned on these lights above us here and he said, not only that, but when we all do this together, look how much light that we can spread into our world. And I was sitting here and I thought, wow, that's really cool, but man, there's a whole bunch more lights in this auditorium. Like, what if we turned on all the lights? And what if we all plugged into the source? And God, man, what could we do? How could we go from strength to strength and really, really light up the darkness? We could take things to the next level. We're strong now, but how much stronger could we be? How could we go from strength to strength? Let's bring those back down. That's hurting my eyes. There we go. Okay. Whew. Yeah. Now, I mean, I got to tell you this. I don't know if you know Ben and if you know Tom, our lead pastor, but Ben and Tom are both very strong. They are way more gym rats than I am. But over the last couple years, I've been going to the gym more than I ever have been in my entire life. And I've learned a few things that I think might be helpful when we're thinking about getting stronger and increasing our ability to live out unity, love, and sacrifice. So the first thing that we need to do, if we're gonna figure this out for ourselves, is we need to assess your strength. You need to assess your strength. When I started going to the gym 2 years ago, I hadn't been in a weight room since I was in college. So I had to figure out where I was strong and where I was weak. I really wasn't strong anywhere, okay? Let's just start there. And honestly, it was pretty humbling experience. My 14-year-old son could lift more than I could most every time we got to a bench or a machine or weights. And there was some areas where I was a little bit strong, but I had a lot to work on. I had to build on those strengths and figure out my weaknesses. And it's the same for us when we start to assess our strength when it comes to following Jesus. It might be pretty humbling at first. Right? And if we compare ourselves to the people around us, you might think, well, man, I don't read my Bible every day, or I'm terrible at praying. I've never invited anyone to church. Fill in the blank where maybe you feel less than. And it might be humbling, but there are going to be some places potentially that you do well. Maybe trust is a strength for you. Maybe patience or love or forgiveness is a strength for you. We all have things we do well, and we all have things that we could do better at. And Jesus modeled this for us. He did things differently. He had rhythms. He knew that he needed to connect with God. So some days he was with thousands of people, and other days he was just by himself. Some days he healed many people. Some days he only healed one person or no people. He worked hard, he rested well, he was in tune with God and what and where God wanted him to do and to go. We need to take a look at our lives and we need to figure out, what am I good at? What do I struggle with? Where do I need to put work in? Where do I need to lean into God and see what he wants me to do? The second thing that I learned is that you need to strengthen your core. Okay? Maybe you've heard this, but you will never be able to lift heavy weights, run really fast, or run really far if you don't have a strong core. Everything is connected to our core. About 5 months ago, I started to do some running. Okay? Actually more like jogging. Apparently, it's where you run for an extended period of time, right? Maybe some of you caught that reference. I usually try to run as little as possible, right? Because riding a bike is so much easier. But I was training for a Tough Mudder, and you have to run a lot during a Tough Mudder, so I thought I better start running. About 3 weeks into running, my knee started hurting. And my knee hurt to the point that I couldn't hardly walk. So I went to a physical therapist, and the first thing they did was started working on core strength for me. I tried to politely explain to them, my knee is hurt, not my stomach. I'm fine here, okay? But they kept working on my core, my hips, everything else, but my knee. And they told me, Your core controls everything. And with everything going on with me, I obviously still need to work on my core, okay? Yes. The same goes for our spiritual life. Our core is Jesus. Nothing happens outside of our connection to him. Check out the way Jesus talks about himself in John chapter 15. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear much fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Jesus' commandment to every single one of us is to go out into the world and tell other people about him. Tell them that following Jesus makes life better. But check this out. Before Jesus sent people out, he always spent time with him. Before he went out and did ministry, he spent time with God. It is so important for us to spend time with Jesus. If that's not a part of your regular rhythms, your core, your spiritual core won't be strong. We always need to be going out into the world, but we need to be coming back to our source, working on our core, spending time with Jesus. The disciples, Jesus' closest friends, his followers, they were known in the community as uneducated fishermen. Most of them were fishermen. But what people always said about them, they didn't say these are kind of uneducated fishermen. They said they knew they had been with Jesus. Spending time with Jesus. It doesn't happen from afar. It is from a place of intimacy. If we want to be more like Jesus, if we want to truly follow him, we need to do the rhythms, the practices that build our relationship with him. Here at E-Hills, we call them the rhythms of a better life. Maybe you've heard these before. Maybe this is your first time hearing them, but I just want to go through them real quick with you and review them. The first one is this: daily time with God. One of the most important decisions that you can make in life is to read your Bible, pray, and personally listen to God on a daily basis. Second thing, weekly time in worship. Connecting with each other, connecting with God through worship, through learning together. It's critical to experiencing that Jesus makes life better. It's why we get together here every Sunday. Regular time with community. We say this, that circles are better than rows. When we connect in groups, our lives get better together. This is what our growth trek is all about. Finding ways to grow with other people. 4, consistent investment in my key 3 relationships. We want to cultivate a lifestyle of inviting others to know that following Jesus makes life better. Investing in 3 people who are close to us but far from God, and figuring how we can invite them into our lives, into the things we're doing here to church. Ongoing habits of generosity and service. Here, we don't want to get stuck in selfie mode, right? It can be real quick, it can become about us. But when we are serving consistently, we are giving consistently, we keep our hearts pointed outward in love for others. We're going to key in on that one in just a minute. Ongoing habits of, I already did that one. Unending change within. As we follow Jesus, we discover that he makes life better, and we actually get better at life. It truly and deeply changes us, and we never want that to end throughout our lives. We never arrive. We can always be more like Jesus. So if we want to know how to be more like Jesus, these are the things we need to do. And sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's boring work, but we do the work. It's not always sexy, it's not always exciting, but we do the work. Do you know how to be a good parent? Here's the thing. You could read a book on how to be a good parent. You could listen to a podcast on how to be a good parent. You could watch a video, an instructional video on how to be a good parent. And all of those might be helpful, but you know what is going to make you a good parent? Spending time with your kids. It's the same way with Jesus. You become more like him the more time you spend with him. Spending time with Jesus is all about strengthening your core. And while you're strengthening your core, it's important to do the reps. When you go to the gym to lift weights, there's a principle. It's called progressive overload, where you gradually increase the intensity of your workouts to continually challenge your body and your muscles and encourage growth. For instance, I walked into the gym for the first time in a long time, and if I laid down on the bench press and I tried to lift 400 pounds, it would have crushed me. So what I did was I lifted 75 pounds. And slowly, over the past 2 years, I've worked my way up to 400 pounds. Just kidding, no, I haven't. More like 85, okay? Just let's be honest, okay? I'm probably about 85 now. You maybe know somebody who prays an hour a day, and you think, I wanna be like that person. I wanna pray an hour every day. Don't do that. You know why? Because you'll quit after 2 days. Start praying 5 minutes a day and do it every single day. Don't try to read the Bible in a week or in a month. Start reading the Bible 5 minutes a day. And please don't start at the beginning in Genesis. You'll get to Leviticus and Numbers and you'll stop. Trust me, I've stopped like 25 different times. Like it's difficult to get through those. Start reading in the New Testament, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those are where we see and hear all the stories about Jesus. Don't sign up to serve, 4 different places here at church every Sunday, every Wednesday, all 3 services. You'll burn out and you'll quit in a couple of weeks, couple of months. Pick one place to serve and show up consistently. Don't give 50% of your paycheck to church. You've maybe heard of somebody else that does that. That's great. Maybe that's how God's challenging them and blessing them, but just start with something small, maybe 1%, maybe $10, whatever you're comfortable with. And then gradually work your way up. More time, more consistency. Do you realize this? The things that we admire most in people are usually developed over time and with consistency. They do the same things over and over and over again. It's called the miracle of monotony. Nobody goes to the gym once and walks out with a six-pack. Right? Nobody eats a salad and loses 20 pounds. It's consistently showing up, logging the hours, doing the reps. It's the same with our relationship with Jesus. Keep showing up, keep praying, keep learning, keep doing the reps. Keep challenging yourself. See, if we want to be a church that pursues unity, love, and sacrifice, we need to assess our strengths. Ask God to show us where we're strong and where we're weak. We need to develop our core, commit to your personal devotion to Jesus. And then we need to do the reps. We need to keep showing up. And if we do that, we all do that, we will see God do amazing things that we never could have imagined or expected here at E Hills. But here's the deal. This is an all skate, okay? Right? I used to work in a skating rink. That was the best time. Couple skate is over, backward skate is over, no specific skills. Everyone out on the skating floor. This is for everyone. This is an all skate. Let me go back to farming, okay? Jesus said the harvest is plentiful. There's all kinds of people out there. 85% of the people that live around our church don't have a faith base. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. As a staff here at Eastern Hills, we are always praying for more people to join us in showing and telling our neighbors how following Jesus makes life better. And if you serve here, if you give here, I want to tell you 2 things. Number 1, you are an answer to prayer. We pray, and you're here. That makes you an answer to prayer. And number 2, I want to tell you thank you. Thank you for investing both your time and your money so that other people can experience the love of Jesus. But here's the thing. We are still praying And we still have more opportunities for people to serve and to give. We are not done as a church. Last week we talked about going from here to there, right? Here's where we are, there's where we want to go. And we talked about how there's going to be steps in between, like 3 services. Give yourselves a hand, we already did that, right? Yeah, we're launching Alpha this week, Wednesday. Okay, man, we are cruising up these steps. Expand the parking. Well, Aurora, we need a permit, so help us out with that, okay? City of Aurora, there we go. And then new campuses, whatever else God has for us. Not sure when that's gonna be. That probably won't be this year, but that's where we're going. Each of these steps is going to take a whole bunch of things, but at least 2 things I know for sure. It's gonna take more people and more money. Now, maybe you're like me. Have you ever walked out of church on the weekend and you had this feeling like, wow, that was such a good message. I feel challenged, I feel convicted, but I'm not exactly sure what to do. That is not going to be the case today, okay? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a step. Start serving, start giving. And if you're already doing those 2 things, what does it look like to increase your reps? Do you have more time to serve? More to give? And let me just say this, if this is your first time at Eastern Hills this morning, you're just checking things out, you can just tune out for a minute. This is for people that call Eastern Hills home. And I promise you, we don't do this every week. This is like a once a year kind of a thing. But here's what we're gonna do. In just a couple of minutes, we're gonna close our time in prayer. No song, no reflection time, just 100% application, okay? You're gonna go out in the lobby and find a place to serve. If you've checked kids in, go get them first, okay? Let's help out our volunteers in our kids and family ministries. Go get them first. But here's the thing, in the lobby, you're gonna find all kinds of places to serve. From running a camera, to making coffee, to shoveling snow, right? PSL, it's already here, snow's coming, okay? Leading a group, places where you can be a part of God's harvest. All of our ministries, all of our departments have opportunities for you to make a difference in people's lives. So take some time and look around. And maybe you've got certain skills or you know exactly where you want to be. Like I want to be a farmer, I want to have wheat fields and mow them down with a big old combine. That's me, right? Or maybe you don't have something specific. Could I ask you for some very specific things? Some places where you can make a difference right away? It would be this. You could serve in our youth and family ministries, specifically in family ministry at 11:30 services. And we've talked here before numerous times how important the faith of the next generation is, that we would do anything to help kids and students learn to follow Jesus. And maybe God is showing you that harvest as a place that he wants you to serve. You can serve helping people feel welcome and seen as they come into our building for the very first time on our welcome or hospitality teams. One important way that you can serve, you've maybe never even thought of serving this way, but you could serve your church by inviting people to Alpha. We have over 100 people participating in Alpha already. But this week, we're starting. So, who can you invite to Alpha before Wednesday? And more importantly than that, maybe some of you need to serve at Alpha. Side note, if you're inviting people to Alpha, out in the lobby, we have a banner, an invitation banner. And we want you to put a sticker up there for every single person you've invited so we can celebrate how many people are getting invited to Alpha, but we still need help making that happen. What about giving? Anthony, our finance director, he'd be in the lobby. He's got some gold balloons with dollar signs on them. Feels right? He can answer any questions for you. how to get on our giving platform, how to help you start a recurring gift. See, these two things, serving and giving, they go hand in hand. And I know in the past, some people have said, well, I serve a whole lot, so I really don't have to give. Or I give a lot, so I really don't have to serve. But here's the thing, they're both so important. They help grow our faith in different ways of teaching us how to trust God. Trusting God that there will be enough time in our week if we serve. Trusting God that there will be enough money in our bank account if we give. It might mean having to reprioritize things, but it will help us live life better. Like I said, this is an all skate. Take a next step, start serving, start giving. After I pray, head out to the lobby, find your place. Don't walk straight out the doors, right? If you're new, if this is your first time here, you just walk out and be like, I'm new, okay? Everybody else, just pretend to look around, okay? And maybe God's gonna show you something that he wants you to be a part of. Let me pray for you, and I'm gonna close my prayer with a prayer that the Apostle Paul prayed for the Ephesian church 2,000 years ago. But I think it is so applicable to us today at E-Hills. So would you pray with me? Lord Jesus, for each and every one of us, God, thank you for the challenge this morning. Thank you for reminding us that we do nothing apart from you, and that we can be a part of helping Eastern Hills go from here to there, having a bigger impact in our community to help people know that following Jesus makes life better. And Jesus, I want to end with the same prayer that Paul prayed for the Ephesian church when he said, I pray that out of God's glorious riches, he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with the measure of the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to the power that is at work within us because of him. To him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Now, if you need someone to talk with, someone to pray with, our care teams are gonna be up here this morning. They would love to talk and pray with you. Next week, please, I wanna invite you back. We are starting a new series called Paper Tigers. And we're gonna talk about how, as followers of Jesus, we can make a real difference in our world by addressing systemic issues of greed, power, religion, how those things, greed, power, and religion, how they play out in our politics, in our economics, and in our world. Ooh, baby, we're going there. It is going to be so good. But right now, go into the lobby, be a farmer, find a way to be an answer to prayer, and find your place to be part of God's harvest. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.